Hey everyone, it's a war out there, and I want to remind you all to leave no dollar left behind. Um, so we're going to be talking some career stuff right now, and I'm going to make a recommendation for this book, Negotiating Your Salary, $1,000 a Minute. And I'm going to put a link to it in the notes so that you can find it easy. So this is the book right here on Amazon. It's only $29. It's very reasonable and worth every penny. So when I was hired, negotiated my salary and took about 3 minutes and got an extra $3,000. So it was literally $1,000 a minute. So when I was hired at the federal government, I came from a law firm. I was making a great salary, I was making six figures, and I took about a 40% pay cut to come work for the government. But there were two levels. I believe one was an 11 and one was a 12. And for the 11, they wanted 2 years experience, and one of them could be a clerkship or an LLM. And then for the higher salary, it was 3 years. And it could be 2 years plus a clerkship, but it didn't say 2 years plus an LLM. So they weren't willing to bend on that and give me the higher grade. But when I brought this up to the person who wanted to hire me, I said, well, the grades don't contemplate something between 2 and 3 years experience. The 11 had 2 years, which includes one plus an LLM, and the 12 has 3 years. But it doesn't include an LLM. I said, so I'm overqualified for one, and I'm not qualifying for the second one because of the way that somebody here wrote the job description. So I said, if you can't give me the higher grade, can we move me over as much as we can in terms of the steps on the 11? And they agreed to that. And so that was an extra 3,000, which it doesn't seem like a lot now, but when I'm taking a 40% pay cut, every bit helps. And as I said, it's a war out there, no dollar left behind. And the reason that you want to negotiate your starting salary so hard is that all your future pay increases, all your bonuses are going to be based on that initial offer, whether that's in the government or in the private sector. All your future raises, promotions are based on that initial offer. So you want to get that as high as possible. And one of the things that you can do, especially in the private sector, is if they offer you a raise, an offering position with the salary, and it's not what you wanted, and what they come back with is what they usually do, which is, well, a year from now when we do your annual review, you'll be eligible for a raise. That's one of the things you can negotiate. You can say, well, how about instead of a year, we do it in 6 months, and then you'll get that raise sooner. And this book gives you ways to talk about that, because sometimes the salary they're not willing to budge on, because if they give you a certain salary, other people on the team might find out, and they'll have to give them all the same salary. But one of the things, strategies they use is, you can negotiate for other things. So if they close a door, you can open a window. For instance, negotiate vacation. An extra week of vacation is definitely worth a lot of money. So if the budget is set by somebody in accounting and they're not willing to move the salary up, something like extra vacation can be something that's just as valuable. Other things like professional fees. So as a lawyer, I have a New York and DC bar that I have to pay every year for my license. And if you can get your employer to pay for that out of their pocket instead of coming out of your after tax dollars, that's something that's a benefit to you, and it doesn't increase your salary. And other things like training. So to keep my law license, I have to do certain continuing education requirements, CLEs. And this is the case in almost every state in the US. A lawyer would have to do CLE courses to keep their license current. And in New York, I believe it's 20 hours every 2 years or something like that. So that's something that you can negotiate, because the last CLE continuing education event I went to was very specialized, but it was $2,500. And if I had to do 2 or 3 of those a year, that's going to add up to a lot of money. So if you can have your employer pay for that. That's one of the things that, it's a great benefit, and you can negotiate when you're made a job offer. And this doesn't have to be when you're accepting the offer. It can be after you're working there a while. So, if you're thinking about leaving, this is one of the things you can negotiate with your new employer, but you can also, if other people are offering this, take it up with your current employer. So I had a friend who worked for several years at HHS as a fraud investigator, and he got them to pay for half his law school. And, this might not be something that they would offer new hires. And, it might be the case that the government is not as generous now as it was before. But, he was a trusted employee. He was doing a great job. And he knew that other places in the private sector were offering this to some people. So he brought it up to his boss and they agreed. There may be some strings attached. Some places, especially in the private sector, will say, we'll pay for that, but then you have to commit to working here for X number of time before leaving. Otherwise, you pay it back. Or they may say, you pay for that out of pocket. And if you get a B or above, we'll pay for it. But if you slack off and get a terrible grade, you pay for it yourself. There's different ways that they'll do that, but it's definitely something you can negotiate. And one of the most important takeaways that I got from this book, the $1,000 a minute book, is not to discuss salary at all until you're made an offer. It's probably the most important point. And they give you a lot of strategies as to how you can postpone that and why you shouldn't do that. But definitely take that to heart. Don't discuss salary until they've made you an offer. And one way to think about this is, my partner's upstairs, but when I met her, if I asked her on a date and said, well, I'm not saying I'm asking you on a date, but I'm saying if I did, what type of restaurant would you like to go to? If I took you here, would you say yes to that? Or if I took you there, would you say yes to that? That sounds ridiculous, but in a job context, it's equally ridiculous if you think about it, for them to say, well, we're not making you an offer, but if we did, what kind of salary would you want? And then making a decision based on that, it's kind of ridiculous. And they give you a few suggestions for how to put that off. One of them is, I would need to know more about the job because this is different than the job I'm currently doing. So, once I know more about the job and the responsibilities and what I'll be doing and the duties, then, we can discuss what's a fair salary for that. And another way to sort of put that off is if they really want to know what you're making at your current job. This is a different job. You're not being hired where you are now. You're being hired to do a different job. So that is why it would be a different salary. And, we can talk about that if you make me an offer. And, I'm working for the government now. And if I went to work at a law firm, what I make there would have no relation to what I'm making now, because I'd be working more hours, I'd be working nights and weekends. So for them to ask what I make now, it's kind of silly, right? And so that's just one way that you can phrase it. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong if you throw out a number, and very little that can go right. So if you throw out a number that's too high, like if they're interviewing 10 people and one of them shoots out a really low number, 8 of them are kind of in the middle, and then you're 50% higher than the rest of them, they're going to get rid of you because they think you're overpriced. They're going to get rid of the person that lowballed them because they'll probably think that person is not qualified, and that's why they threw out that low number. And then they'll make a decision among the 8 who are just in the pack. So if you refuse to throw out a number, then you're giving them, you're taking away one of the reasons for them to ding you. Another reason not to discuss salary at all, it's psychological. So if they've made you an offer, they've decided that they want you. And as I said before, if you throw out a number and they're taking that number into consideration about who to hire, you don't want to be part of that conversation in their mind. But if they've made you an offer, the person who's made you an offer is the boss. And then it's up to the HR person to get you on board. And they don't want to go back to their boss and say, well, I made him an offer, but they said no, and then have to explain to their boss, well, I offered them this and they said it wasn't enough. And the boss is going to say, well, why don't you offer them more? So, you want them to commit to hiring you. And then if the important person is committed to hiring you, then the support staff that's doing the paperwork or putting together the offer, they're the ones who are going to try to make that happen, because they know that the boss wants you, not that they want a person hired, that they want you specifically. So they're more likely to listen to your salary demands and things like that, if they've already decided that they want you. And so, as I said, don't throw out a number. What you're making now is irrelevant because you're not going to be working where you're working now. You're working somewhere else. And throwing out a number that's too high can ding you. Throwing out a number that's too low can ding you. Don't mention any number until they make you an offer. And once they've made you an offer, you can say, well, let's discuss what this job entails, what the duties, and then there's things you can negotiate about that. So I mentioned before about negotiating vacation days and fees and training, stuff like that. But post-pandemic, one of the things you can negotiate is, are you in person or are you remote? So, if I was offered a job and I had to go in every day, I'm sure I would want at least 30% more. If I was offered a job where I can do it fully remote, I might take less. If you were offered a job where you have to travel out of town, you might demand more for that. And, if you're just out of school, traveling for work might sound glamorous. You think you're going to be going to London and Paris, but that's usually not the case. You're usually going to a place like Mattoon, Illinois, or Coudersport, Pennsylvania. And if you do happen to go to a big city, you're going to be working, not sightseeing like Emily in Paris. So, travel is something that they should compensate you for because it's not fun. Yeah, so back to the book. I definitely recommend this. I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes so that you guys can find it easily. As I said, it's on Amazon. It's not a new book. It's been around a while, but the recommendations are definitely useful and timeless. And I can't remember who recommended it to me initially, but I've recommended it to many people, and I've given away, I don't know how many copies. I keep buying other copies because I keep giving it to friends who are interviewing. It's that useful. And, I think you should read it before you do the interview, because there's a lot of stuff out there on answering interview questions or doing a resume a certain way. And there's not a lot of stuff about that last mile where you get the offer. And I think this is the most useful item I found for that last mile. And a lot of the stuff that's very helpful in the book is going to require you to have read the book first. So after you're interviewing and, they're going to ask about salary. And if you told them, and then you read this book and you say, oh, I shouldn't have done that, then that's not very helpful. But, reading the book, thinking about the different strategies they employ to negotiate not only your salary, but your benefits, because your compensation is the total package. And, you'll be forewarned and forearmed. So, if you've done what the book recommends, which is seeing what the going rate is in your industry for this type of position, what's the high range, what's the low range, what types of benefits they offer, what type of benefits are available, then you've got all those quivers in your bag that you can use when it's time for the interview and you get the offer. You don't want to have to scramble around and figure this out at the last minute. You want to be as prepared for the last mile as you are for, the first mile. So, you've practiced interview questions. I'm sure, you've had a friend look over your resume. So, take the time to do this last part, which is, look at salaries, look at benefits, what other people are offering, what's available. And that's going to pay off in the long run, because as I said, all your future raises and performance reviews and stuff like that are based off that initial salary that you're working off of. And, other employers will also look at that. So if you're looking to lateral from one to the other, and they do want to know what you made at your prior employer, having a higher starting salary makes you more credible when you're looking to switch jobs. So, I can't I can't emphasize how important it is to negotiate that starting salary, and this is a great tool for that. So I've it's benefited me through the years, and I'm just throwing that out there. And I did mention I work for the federal government, and I haven't mentioned where I work, and I won't. But I did get permission from my ethics counsel and general counsel, and I said, if I ever mention work, the name of the employer, I would give the disclaimer about, it's my opinion and it's not my boss or where I work. And but I haven't mentioned the name of the place, so it's kind of irrelevant. But a lot of these techniques for negotiating salary or benefits, they transcend public sector or private sector. And I said I found it useful. My partners found it useful when she negotiated her job at a big consulting outfit, and other friends that are been hired at law firms and stuff like that. I've given them copies of this book, and they've been really grateful for that. And I'm telling you guys because I do want to help you. And that's about all I have to say on this. So if you got something out of this, like and subscribe, because I want to put out more useful information like this. And I'd like you to be able to find it. This is a new channel. I don't have many subscribers, and I want to help as much as possible. So, if you like and subscribe, this will come up in your feed next time I have something. And if you have any comments or questions, things you want to see, things you have questions about, just put it below. I'm more than happy to help in any way I can. And I think suggestions for what you'd like to see would help me, because I would know sort of what you're here for and how I can help you. And you can do that by leaving a comment. So like, subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll hopefully see you guys very soon. Good luck.